Hello, beautiful subscribers. It's March 24th here, southeastern Pennsylvania, zone 7A. And today we're going to be talking about what to look for when you're buying fruit trees at the nursery. There's going to be a lot of trees to choose from, and I want to make sure that you guys pick the best ones. Okay, so we get to the nursery, we're walking down the aisles, we get to the Galaxy Donut Peach, and there's 50 of them, and we have to choose the best one. You want to look for a bunch of things. For me, I have a quick inspection that I do of the tree to make sure it passes. I look at the first one, it doesn't pass my list of inspections, then I'll move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. You might go through 10 Galaxy Peaches before you find one that passes all the inspections. We want to look for no reverse taper. We want to look at the root flare. We want to look at the graft union. We want to make sure there's no fungus or insects. We want to look at the branch structure. We want to look and make sure there's no canker. We want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth. So I'm going to go over a few of the things that I look for to decide if this tree is worth my time and money. I recently picked up 5 more trees from the Tree Authority, my local nursery. We had the Galaxy Donut White Peach. That's the newer, improved variety of the Saturn Peach. We have the Elberta Peach. This is supposed to bloom a little bit later. We have the Arkansas Black Apple. We have a Winesap apple. And last but not least, the Fuyu persimmons. This one is actually for my mom. I do not need any more Fuyus. When I got to the nursery last week and started walking down the aisles of the hoops, there were more fruit trees than I had ever seen in one hoop in my entire life. Hoops are just what they keep the trees in this time of year. They're like pop-up greenhouses. But most of the trees that had passed my inspection had already been tagged. So it's important that you go to your nurseries earlier in the springtime, even if you're not planning on planting them for a few weeks, so that you can tag the best trees they have. And by tagging them, it just means that they won't sell the tree to anybody else. All right, let's look at these 5 trees a little bit closer, and I will show you the important things I look for while I'm at the nursery to see if the tree is worth my money, time, and hard work. We want to get these apple trees to last at least 25 years, and the peach trees at least 15 years. So we want to get the ones that have the best start in life. The first thing I look for is the bottom part of the trunk for a reverse taper. So I'm in the fruit tree nursery hoop, and I'm at the Arkansas Black pile of fruit trees. There's a whole bunch of them. And I'm looking at the trunks, and I want to see a normal taper, no reverse taper. A normal taper is where it's the widest at the bottom, and then it gradually gets smaller as it goes up. A reverse taper, which I'll show you on another tree in a minute, is where it's actually larger. This one's close. See? It's actually larger here than it is here. We want the tree to be widest at the bottom. And obviously that's for structural reasons. It's going to be much sturdier. Think of like a pyramid. It's going to have a nice strong base. Also, if it's real out of whack, when the tree goes to grow, air pockets can form in there as it wraps around, and the fungus and diseases can get in there. So that's the first thing I look for. A normal, nice taper. This is a Victoria European plum that I got through the mail. And this is bad. This is a reverse taper. Do you see how it's thicker in diameter, about 4 inches off the ground, than it is at the ground? This is something we would not want to purchase at the nursery. This is called a reverse taper, and this is not good. Here is a Hosui Asian pear, and this is a beautiful taper and a beautiful graft union. This is what we are looking for. Then I want to see the root flare. Like, this is how they look in the hoop, and I can't see the root flare. I don't know what's going on down there. So we're going to pull all this back at the nursery before we buy it, and we're going to look down at the root flare. We want to make sure there's no rot down here, there's no lesions, there's no girdled roots. A girdled root is one that wraps around the trunk. It happens when they're stuck in containers for a long time. It can put pressure on the trunk and choke it out. So it'll be a root that's wrapping around the trunk down at the flare. If you do happen to see a girdled root when you go to plant your tree in the ground, then we want to remove it when we plant the tree. This root flare looks really good to me. Next, I want to look at the graft union. And the graft union is where they join the two different trees together. So, you could see right here on the Winesap apple that right here is the graft union. The upper portion is the desired tree you want to grow, the desired type of fruit you want to eat, and the bottom portion is the root stock. And the root stock is used to control the height of the tree and also the cold hardiness. Depending on what root stock the upper portion is planted on will determine the height of the tree as well. These trees are semi-dwarf, but you can also get standard rootstock or fully dwarf rootstock. We want to look and make sure that this graft union is healing over. This one looks really nice. See how it's healed over? It's hard. This tissue is not soft. You don't see any problems here. This one looks really good on the Fuyu persimmons. You can see this is starting to heal over on the sides. This is what we want. Definitely no soft tissue or anything that looks wrong in this area. I wanted to show you my ruby red grapefruit because this is the perfect graft and perfect taper. There's the root flare. I mean, this is what we are looking for. This is just done perfectly. This is going to have a really strong structural base, and this tree is going to do really well. I'm also going to look at the entire trunk for any damage. It can happen during transportation, rabbits or voles or anything else in the nursery. You could get big scarring on the trunk that we do not want. Sometimes at the nursery, these will be covered in protective burlap or plastic. We want to remove it before you buy the tree. Make sure you take off any of that protective covering so we can examine the entire portion of the trunk that's hidden. We want to make sure that there's nothing wrong in there. And then I'm going to inspect the rest of the tree closely for what's called cankers. Canker is a localized area of disease or damage. So sometimes it'll be a big scar way up the tree or on one of the horizontal branches. This is the sign of an infection. I didn't see any on these trees, that's why I got them, but I do have cankers on some of my old trees in the orchard, and I'll show them to you. Here's an example of what a lesion or a canker will look like at the nursery. It's almost like a sunken in impression on the side of the trunk. This is no good. If you see something like this, do not buy the tree. Here's another example of what a canker can look like. See this branch? It looks normal, looks more normal, and then you have this weird impression, an indent. This is something we would want to avoid. This is generally what a canker looks like. We do not want to buy a tree that has a canker on it. That will not pass the inspection. It'll be push it aside, pull out other trees in the hoop, and start looking at different trees. Don't settle for a tree with a canker on it. Then I'm going to check the entire tree for fungus. We do not want to spread fungus through our orchard. You will be able to see powdery mildew or fire blight while you're at the nursery. So the last thing we want to do is bring home fire blight on an apple tree and spread it to the other 15 apples. I mean, that just gives me pain thinking about. So check for any type of fungus or any discoloration or anything that doesn't look right to you. It's hard to see, but see how this branch is all black? Gnarly? Looks like something's wrong with it. This looks like fire blight to me. So, if we see anything that looks out of the ordinary, we are not going to purchase it. We want to inspect the trees for insects. The last thing we want to do is bring back a bunch of insects to the property. So, a lot of insects are easily treatable with organic insecticides, but let's say there's armored scale on here or oyster scale on here, and you bring back armored scale to your house, woo! And then you get armored scale on all your other peaches, and the only way you can really treat armored scale effectively is with a systemic insecticide, which gets sucked into the tree. And a lot of people don't want to do that because nobody wants to eat a piece of fruit that's got insecticide in it. So, examine the tree carefully. Take your time when you're making your purchase. This is what the nymph stage of scale looks like. We're looking at a burning bush at my house. You see all the white? These are remnants of scale all over the branches. You will be able to see this at the nursery when you make a purchase. Take your time and look carefully. Seriously though, I probably looked at 10, 12 Galaxy peaches before I decided that this is the one I wanted. The other ones either were tagged already or didn't pass something in one of my inspections. All right, once the tree has passed all your inspections, we're talking about the root flare, the taper, the graft union, cankers and lesions, fungus, and insects. After everything looks good, last but not least is branch structure. So, for example, I like my peaches open vase. So there was a lot of peaches that were single stem with branching up high. And I want to open the center up like this. So when I saw this one, I'm planning on bending this down and opening up this whole center. I have nice low branching structure, which is the opposite of what I look for in my apples. I like to grow apples with one main leader. It's called a central leader with horizontal branches coming off. So they had some with multiple leaders, and they didn't make my inspection. Now, you can grow your fruit trees whatever way you want. There's lots of different ways to prune and structure different fruit trees. So just have a plan in mind when you get there, because this could set you back 2 years. I mean, if you bought a peach tree that looked like this, but you really wanted an open vase, and then you got to come in here and make a big cut, wait for new branches to grow. I mean, you're better off just taking the time to find one that already has the shape that you're looking for. Just because the tree is flowering at the nursery in the pot does not mean it's gonna flower for you next year when you plant it in the ground. So don't be surprised. This peach tree's covered in flowers right now, but it behaves completely different when it's in the pot in a nursery hoop. So if you plant this in the ground and you don't have flowers the next year, don't worry, because it's completely normal. You might have flowers on an apple in the nursery and then never see flowers again for 5 years after you put the plant in the ground. I mean, the plant's gonna wanna expand the roots and veg the tree out and not worry about reproducing right away. The restriction in this pot and the heat of the hoop is changing the tree conditions. All right, long story short, don't rush your purchase for your fruit tree. If they don't have anything that looks good, don't buy it. Most nurseries are gonna get 2 shipments of fruit trees every single year. So take the time, check around, ask them when they're getting more trees in, and try and find one that's good for you. I thought I'd leave you guys with a beautiful shot of my winter pansies. And like always, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.